Just remember, the stuff presented by this creepy bear is from the Evolution 101 website, written by the Understanding Evolution team. Commentary by Rent-A-Friend2000. That's me!
The causes of mutations. Mutations happen for several reasons. 1. DNA fails to copy accurately. Most of the mutations that we think matter to evolution are naturally occurring. For example, when a cell divides, it makes a copy of its DNA, and sometimes the copy is not quite perfect. That small difference from the original DNA sequence is a mutation.
Did I mention that an average functional protein needs 900 of those DNA letters in the right order? You know how having one wrong number and a telephone number means you can't make your call? It can be a lot like that. Sickle cell anemia is the result of one wrong letter. Your cells will pay dearly for dialing a wrong number. On the bright side, DNA gets free nights and weekends, and unlimited texting. That could be the cause of a lot of mutations. Your cells are trying to text and replicate at the same time. Tragically, not all of them will survive. Of course, sometimes the errors don't do any harm, but over generations, those harmless errors add up until they are harmful. Neutral mutations are like smoking. Your first cigarette probably won't kill you, but over the years, the tiny bits of tar from each one accumulate until your lungs look like a freshly sealed driveway. After that, your tennis game starts to deteriorate, along with your cardiovascular system. Harmless mutations are a lot like that.
External influences can create mutations. Mutations can also be caused by exposure to specific chemicals or radiation.
Note to self, add a joke about Taco Bell right here.
These agents cause the DNA to break down. This is not necessarily unnatural. Even in the most isolated and pristine environments, DNA breaks down. Nevertheless, when the cell repairs the DNA, it might not do a perfect job of the repair. So the cell would end up with DNA slightly different than the original DNA and hence, a mutation.
Now they're just taunting the TMNT fans. Radioactive waste could cause mutations in a turtle, but not those mutations. Way to harsh our Ninja Turtle buzz, man. And again, remember that these misspellings and breakdowns have to 1. Create new information that 2. Produces new structures, functions, and behaviors, which are 3. To the benefit of the organism, and 4. Increases not only their chance of survival, but of reproduction, and 5. Occurs in the reproductive cells, so they can be passed on. Otherwise, while interesting, all of this would have nothing to do with evolution. And keep in mind, this information will not actually help the survival of the parent who originally carries it, because it doesn't change the DNA which makes them, only the DNA they donate to the next generation. How easy is that? Well, not very. Once again, when we say life needs a superintelligence, i.e. God, directing it, we're not making an appeal to what we don't know. We're making an appeal to a rare and often overlooked scientific tool which I like to call common sense. Admittedly, the name is misleading.
Gene flow. Gene flow, also called migration, is any movement of genes from one population to another.
I'm going to edit out most of this migration business and just cut to the chase. Gene flow has nothing to do with evolution. Evolution needs to account for the writing of vast amounts of genetic information. Sending it somewhere else can't account for that. Genetic information demands a writer, i.e. God, not merely a method of distribution. Gene flow is like tracking the sale of Harry Potter books. If you made a list of all the planes, trains, and automobiles which have shipped them, and all the websites and stores which have sold them, you would, at the end of the day, still not have explained a single page without J.K. Rowling. You certainly wouldn't know what a muggle was.
Sex can introduce new gene combinations into a population and is an important source of genetic variation. You probably know from experience that siblings are not genetically identical to their parents or to each other, except, of course, for identical twins. That's because when organisms reproduce sexually, some genetic shuffling occurs, bringing together new combinations of genes.
Once again, I'll chop out the lengthy for example and just point out the apparently not obvious enough. Shuffling is not creating. The genes being shuffled already exist. New genes are not created, only new arrangements of already existing genes. Put 1,000 monkeys in a big room and have them shuffle 1,000 decks of cards around the clock as often as they can. And do you know what you'll have after 1,000 years? You'll have 1,000 dead monkeys. But I can tell you what you won't have, even if the monkeys were immortal. You'll never have the Archduke of Hearts.
This shuffling is important for evolution because it can introduce new combinations of genes every generation. However, it can also break up good combinations of genes.
This is true. It's also true that the plastic bit at the end of a shoelace is called an aglet. Also, the hummingbird is the only animal that can fly backwards. What all of these true statements have in common is that they will never turn bacteria into wolves and cabbages. If you check the title of the Understanding Evolution team's webpage, it's called Evolution 101, which implies that they will provide information about evolution. Yet here we are wasting yet another page talking about fun science trivia, which will never make anything evolve. Trying to be patient here, but this is like asking for directions from someone who refuses to talk about anything but the weather. I don't care if it might rain tonight. I've got reservations at Claim Jumper. They have a piece of chocolate cake nearly 2 feet tall. Just point north and let me get on my way. When shown the Queen of Hearts, evolution says, this card did not have a designer. It arose by unguided natural processes. When asked for proof, it shuffles the deck, deals a few hands and says, see how the 5-card hands are all different? Look what shuffling can create. After a few rounds, you may notice that some of the cards are damaged and discolored, or that you no longer have all 52 cards. At this point, evolution victoriously declares, see, the deck has changed suit frequency. Clear evidence that the Queen of Hearts had no designer, but came about through random, accidental changes. And then they mock the creationists. Remember, the question is not, to where do genes flow, or how many ways can you shuffle them? It's, where did they come from in the first place? Genesis is God's text message to us, where he admits that he is the author of DNA and life itself. Accepting a super-intelligent creator as the cause of a super-complex language system, which runs astoundingly complex machinery, just seems like common sense. But I've already talked about this too much. I need to get going. Somewhere, there's a piece of chocolate cake calling my name. And we'll see you next week! Yippee!